This is David with KRC, Keiryu Rod Co, and today we're going to talk about the lines and the rigs that we sell on our website. We're going to cover about 6 different rigs. If you currently own a Keiryu Rod, this is an opportunity to get a quick overview on all these different rigs. If you don't, this is an opportunity for you to understand what Keiryu and fixed line fishing is all about and just to see what these rigs can offer you. So for each rig, we're going to talk about the technical specs. We'll take a close look at the lines. We'll talk about when to use them and just provide our overall thoughts. This video is a little bit long, so we'll provide the timestamps here, and that way you can just jump to the section that you're most interested in. All right, let's get started. All right, the first line we're going to be talking about is our 9-foot floating line. Let's take a close look at the line and talk about the technical specs. Okay, so here's an up close of the line. Here's the package. The back of the package has some instructions, and there is a link to a video showing you how to rig this line. The line itself comes on this foam winder, and the line is made up of 2 sections. It starts off with a loop right here for the girth hitch knot on your Lillian. And the main section is a Euro level line, which you can see right there. It is 0.022 inches in diameter, and it's made in the United States. The second section, which I'll unwind to right here, is a 2-tone indicator by Rio, and this is rated 3X. At the end of this indicator line, there is a 2mm tippet ring, and to that ring you're going to attach your tippet line, and then you will attach your flies. Okay, let's talk about when to use this line. The great thing about this line is that it can be used for everything. It can be used for nymphing, subsurface applications, or for dry flies. If you're going to be casting dry flies, we recommend that you attach mono tippet to this line. If you're going to be nymphing, we recommend that you attach fluorocarbon tippet to this line. One tip that we also have is after you cast, you want to lift the rod up to pick up any slack, and then keep that rod ahead of the line as you're drifting it downstream. Also, keep an eye on the indicator line, which is going into the water, that Rio indicator line. Keep an eye on that. If you see any movement, set the hook. If you think you see movement, set the hook. Don't set the hook overly aggressive. It's a firm setting of the hook. Overall thoughts. I really like this line a lot. It's very versatile. It casts really well. It's visible. It floats really well. The one thing I would recommend is when you unwind it, as with many other lines of this type, go ahead and stretch it out a little bit to work out the memory. Once you do that, it'll lay really nice. With that said, it's a great line for any compact Keiryu or Tenkara rod. I would say in the 9 to 11 foot range. Okay, this is the Daiwa 4-meter line. It's a floating line. Let's take a close look at it and talk about the technical specs. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this Daiwa 4-meter floating line. This line is a PVC level line. It's 4 meters, 13 feet. It has a diameter of 0.022 inches. To attach your tippet to this line, there's several options. You could simply tie an overhand knot here, then use a slip knot to attach your Tenkara or your tippet line to it. very common with Tenkara type lines. Or what you could do is use a nail knot and just tie a nail knot. If you're going to tie a nail knot, what I would recommend is taper down from this line, so maybe go to a 3x and use about a foot of a two-tone indicator, and then attach a tippet ring to that, and then you can always use that tippet ring in the future for attaching your tippet. So that's it. Overall, this is very well put together. I will point out the loop here that you will use for your girth hitch knot to attach it to the Lillian. It is a little bit on the small side, but other than that, this is a great line, very high quality. Okay, so let's talk about when to use this line. This is a great line for dry flies. It's a great line for Tenkara Kibari flies. You can also nymph with it. It works really well with dry dropper rigs. This line will really extend your reach. For example, if you're using the T100 rod, which is about 18 feet, and you're using this line, you can extend your reach out beyond 30 feet. My overall thoughts on this line, I really like this line a lot. It's probably my favorite floating line. It's very visible, it casts really well, it's extremely durable. When you open it up, there's a little bit of memory like all of these lines, so you want to just stretch that out. About the only thing I can complain about this line or nitpick is the size of the loop is a little small, and sometimes that makes it a little bit hard to attach it to the Lillian, but I am nitpicking a little bit. I highly recommend this line. It works great with any mid-size rod, 4 meters, all the way up to a full-size Keiryu rod in the 5.4 meter range. And of course, it works really well with Tenkara rods. If you're using a level line, this line would give you great performance on windy days. So it's another great option to have. And yeah, highly recommend it. Okay, this is our Kevlar furled line. Let's take a close look at the line and talk about the technical specs. Okay, here is the Kevlar line. There's the front of the package, and here's the back of the package up close, and here's the line on a spool. The foam winder does come with this line. So this is a 4 meter tapered Kevlar line. This is a floating line, and it does come with a tippet ring at the end, which I'll unwind to show you. Okay, there you can see the tippet ring, and you would just attach your tippet to that, and then you're ready to go. One recommendation that I do have to increase the floating performance is to add floatin. Here is what I've been using for a long time, mucilin. There's several brands out there. I think many of them are quite good. So typically these will come with a little pad, and you take that pad and you apply paste to it by either wiping or with your fingers. And then you take the line and you're just going to fold the pad and run the line through it. I like to twist the line as I do that, and every once in a while stop and apply more paste to the pad. You can also use your fingers, but make sure your fingers are clean so that you're not attaching any grime or grease to the line. But that's it. Okay, let's talk about when to use this line. A little bit of background information. When we introduced the T100, we assumed that most applications with that rod would be subsurface fishing, i.e. nymphing, but we also wanted to provide a line that could be used for dry fly applications. And we tested a lot of different lines, a lot of different materials, and this was the winning line. Keiryu rods tend to be stiffer, so we wanted to make sure that we were matching up the right line with the T100 rod and or other Keiryu rods to make sure the performance was there. So this is a line that you would use for dry flies, Kevlar flies, light nymph duty, dry dropper rigs. It's also a line that can extend your reach, just like the Daiwa line. If you're using the T100 or a standard size Keiryu rod that's 5.4 meters, you can get out beyond 30 feet if you want using this line, which is a definite advantage in certain situations. My overall thoughts, what I really like about this line is how well it casts. It's very easy to cast. It's a very soft line that's very pliable. You can see it here as I unspool it. There is no tangling, there's no memory on this line. One recommendation I do have is, like we mentioned, is to use floating to maximize its floating performance. Then the other thing I'll address is, how does this compare to the Daiwa line? They're both great lines. The Daiwa line does provide better flotation and better visibility. This line would be easier to cast. So those would be the main differences. In terms of what rods to use this on, this works great with any mid-size Keiryu rod, 4 meters or above, or any full-size Keiryu rod, 5.4 meters or above. And it also works really well, it casts really well with Tenkara rods. So that's the Kevlar line. Here's our new Euro Nymph line. This is a finesse subsurface fishing line that's designed for nymphing. Let's take a closer look at it and look at the specs. Okay, so here's a close look at the Euro Nymph line. And as you can see, obviously it comes with a foam winder. The line is 13 feet long and it's designed for nymphing. It's designed to be a very finesse, stealth nymphing line, and it's made up of two sections: the main line nylon section, a indicator, and then a tippet ring to which you would attach your tippet. And here's the back panel. So let's take a close look at the line. Okay, here's a close-up of the line. We start with our loop for our girth hitch knot that we will use to connect to the Lillian. And then the main line is right here. You can see as I unwind it. And this is a nylon called SEMP. It's a competitive grade nylon. It's used to build very fine leaders for, especially for Euro nymphing applications. And this line right here that we're using is 0.011 inches in diameter. And it is multicolored. It's got yellow and orange, which really helps make this line really visible. And in addition to that, it's also very supple. It has virtually no memory. And as you unwind it, you will just tug it apart, pull it apart a little bit, and it'll lay very nicely. So this line then is connected to a Rio 3X two-tone indicator, and we'll get to that right now. So there's the connection. That's a blood knot, so it tapers from 0.011 to 0.008, and that is your indicator. It's about a foot or so, and at the end of that indicator there is a 2mm tippet ring. Okay, let's talk about when to use this line. As the name implies, this is a nymphing line. It's designed for nymphing. It's designed to produce wonderful drag-free drifts. That's what the line is designed to do. It works great for deep nymphing. It works great in medium to fast water. It works great with a 2-nymph setup, which is a common Euro nymph setup where you have a heavy nymph at the bottom and a lighter nymph at the top. In terms of my overall thoughts, I really like this line a lot. I think it has great potential. I think it's relatively easy to use. What I really like is the thin, stealthy line, and the fact that that line is also very visible. So you have a thin line that's going to cut through the water, that's not going to spook finicky fish, yet it's going to be very visible, and it's also a supple line. It's a line that doesn't have a lot of kink to it. There's virtually no memory, and when you unwind it, you can just kind of pull it apart if they're tug it as you unwind it, and it'll lay really nicely. So those are my overall thoughts on this line. I definitely recommend it. I would say it works great with 4 meter rods all the way up to rods that are up to 20 feet, like our Nissan 620. And the final thing I'll mention is the amount of tippet to add to this. That's a personal choice in terms of how deep you need to get. We say anywhere from 3 to 6 feet. It can be more than 6 feet, but I would say generally speaking, start at 3 feet. So that's it. I hope you give this line a try and let us know what you think. Thanks. Okay, the next two lines we're going to be talking about are Owner rigs. These come from Japan. They're very traditional Keiryu rigs. Basically, they are ultra finesse bait rigs that are used by Keiryu anglers, typically using river baits such as stoneflies and mayflies found at the source. These are very well put together lines. They're very stealthy, and because of that, they can be used very effectively with nymphs by simply swapping out the hooks. So you can take advantage of these lines and use them in a variety of ways. So let's take a closer look, starting with the yarn marker rig. Okay, let's take a close look at the Owner yarn marker rig. Here's a up close look at the package, the front panel, and this is the back panel. And you can see that it comes with split shot, 6 different BB size split shot. On the front of this panel here, you can see that there's 2 lines, one right here, one right here. It also comes with extra hooks and tippet line. And let me open this package up and take out a line. Okay, so here's an open package, and basically you just undo the line and unwind it like this. And I'm going to go ahead and unwind this line completely and put it on a foam winder so we can look at it closer. Okay, so let's take a close look at the line. This line is composed of 3 sections. So you have a loop here for your girth hitch knot, and this works quite well. This is made out of yellow braid, as is the whole top section right here. And this section is then connects to monofilament, which is the main line, which I'll show you right now. Here's the connection to the main line, and this line is around 4x in terms of its spec. It's very thin, hard to see, which is a good thing. And this attaches to a rubber tippet ring at the end of the line, which I'll show you right now. So here's the rubber tippet ring, and you can see if I pull it there, you can see it. It's elastic. This attaches to 5x tippet, about 10 inches of 5x tippet, which ends at the Owner hook right here. And this is about a size 10 hook, extremely sharp. One of the great things about this rig, obviously, is it comes with yarn markers, and these are basically your cider material for this line. And these markers work great because they're easy to slide up and down the line. You basically just move them up to where you need them or move them down, and you want to space them a few inches apart, about 1.5 to 2 inches apart. That's personal preference, whatever allows you to see them better. I usually space them somewhere like that, about 1.5 to 2 inches apart. Now, one tip with setting these yarn markers, you want to set them so that they're above the water when you're fishing. So you want to try to get an understanding of how deep you need to be, and then you want to set these about 1.5 to 2 feet above that. So if you think that you need to be about 5 feet deep, I would set these yarn markers at around 7 feet. You want to give yourself some space so that they can remain atop the water, especially because the line at the bottom of the water is going to bend because the current is lower than it is at the top. And depending on how strong that current is, that line can be bending a lot or a little bit. So there's a little bit of trial and error. If you do get these wet, it's not that big of a deal. I've caught many fish with these in the water as I was trying to get deeper and trying to dial in the depth. They're extremely light, so you're not really imparting drag when they go in. So that's kind of it for the line. Okay, let's talk about when to use the Owner yarn marker rig. This rig can be characterized as a finesse bait fishing line that is extremely effective. Use this in rivers to get excellent drifts and delicate presentations that can lure even finicky fish. You can use this in lakes. It's very easy to run up those yarn markers up the line and get really deep in a lake. My overall thoughts on this line, I like that it comes with 2 lines and that it comes with the split shot, so it's everything you need and the extra hooks. What I really like is that rubber tippet ring. Most of the time, if you get a break on this line, it's going to be breaking right at that tippet ring, and you can easily replace your line with hook, or you can add your own fluorocarbon line, tippet line, and you can add a nymph, and you can add a second nymph, just adding a tag line attached to that tippet ring. So it's really versatile. This rig works great with rods starting at 4 meters and above. It works great with obviously with the T100 rod, which is 5.4 meters. And the stiff actions, the stiff backbone and fast action of these rods will generate very positive hook sets with this rig, even in quite deep water. Okay, here's a close-up of the package. This rig is similar to the yarn marker rig. The key difference, of course, is that it uses a bobber versus yarn markers. This line is also a little bit shorter. It's just shy of 15 feet from loop to hook. It's about 14 feet and 10 inches. But this is also designed as a finesse bait fishing rig, although you could swap out the hooks for a nymph or anything else you want. On the back panel here, you can see that it comes with a built-in weight, and we'll talk about that in more detail. And on the front here, you can see it comes with extra hooks attached to line, 3 of them. So we're going to open this up, put it on a winder, and then kind of unwind it and talk about each section. Okay, here's a close-up of the line. This line is made up of 2 sections. It's basically a monofilament line that's about 4x that tapers down to a 5x line that connects to the hook. At the top of this line, we have a loop right here, which you can use a girth hitch knot to connect it to the Lillian. So this is a thin line which would be very hard to see if not for that bobber. At the end of the line, it's going to connect to this 5x line through a clasp right here, and above that there is a weight. This weight is about 1.5 bb's, so it's a decent amount of weight to get this rig deep. And you can see the line connects to this tension clasp just by the loop of the line. You slide that in. You have to make sure that you slide it all the way in, or it could possibly slide out. And there's about 8 inches of this 5x line, which then attaches to the hook right here. This is a very sharp hook, like all these Owner hooks, about a size 10. Let's talk about the bobber. The bobber works by sliding it into this little rubber slider right here. So you basically slide this up or down the line until you get to the right depth that you want to achieve, and then you just push in the bobber and you're good to go. Now this bobber indicator, or trout ball float rig as owner calls it, is very visible. Here I'm comparing it to a thingamabobber. This is a 3/4 inch thingamabobber. The trout ball is a little bit smaller, it's 0.7 inch, but in my opinion it definitely pops more in the water and is more visible. That's just my opinion, but it works remarkably well. And again, it's very easy to use. Just slide it up and down. Make sure that you're getting deep enough, and make sure you're accounting for the differences in the current, the speed of the water at the bottom versus the top, because your line can bend, and so you want to be a little bit higher than your target depth when you're attaching this. Okay, one other tip with the bobber here. I usually store it on this winder by simply punching it through it very carefully. So I'll just slowly work my way into the foam. Again, not too aggressive, and then just slowly make sure it's in. And then I'll just reuse that hole there to store it, and that's how I wind it up on the foam winder, and works quite well. Again, just make sure you don't try to stab the foam winder too aggressively, because the tip of this could break. But if you just start it gently, then it works really well. Okay, let's talk about the Owner trout ball float rig. This rig is very similar to the yarn marker rig, but instead of yarn markers you have a bobber, and because of that this is probably the easiest rig to use. It's great for beginners, it's great for kids. You simply set the bobber to the right depth, cast it, and you let the bobber do the work. For that reason, beyond lakes, beyond rivers, it's also really good on lakes where you can just let the bobber do the work and do still method fishing. What I really like about this is that bobber. It's very visible in the water, even on sunny days. It does stand out. It's very easy to attach it. You simply use the rubber slider and you slide it up and down the line, and then attach the bobber by just inserting it. It's a method that is very easy and it works very well. This rig also comes with extra hooks and line, and there's pros and cons to the way they've set this up. These lines have loops, and you simply attach it to the end of this line where there's a tension clasp, and you just slide it through. There's been a few occasions where I've seen it come off, maybe because it wasn't put in all the way. So on the one hand, it's easy to replace that hook line if you need to, but you have to be careful when doing so. The other thing that I would say could be improved on this line is the loop itself for the girth hitch knot. The loop is made out of the monofilament line, and it's kind of small. It's not super user-friendly. But overall, this is a great line. We recommend it for newbies. We recommend it for kids. It's just a great way to get on the water. And it works great with rods starting at 4 meters and above. Definitely a perfect fit with 5.4 meter rods like our T100 rod. So let us know if you have more questions, but overall a great line. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found the information useful. If you did, please share it with your friends and your colleagues who may be interested in it or inspired by it. If there's one thing you got out of this video, I hope it's the versatility and the effectiveness of Keiryu fishing showcased by all the rigs that we went through. I like to think of Keiryu fishing as fixed line fly fishing. You can dry fly with it, you can nymph with it, you can reach out beyond 30 feet using one of the floating lines, you can get deep using a subsurface nymphing line and get beautiful drag-free drifts. It is highly effective in so many applications. Now, in addition to the rigs that we went over today, we also feature rigs that you can make, and they're on our website. I'll show them to you right now. These rigs came from anglers and they came from guides that have been using our rods. We've tested them, they're highly effective, they're relatively easy to make. And if you have ideas or lines that you've tested, feel free to contact us and let us know about them. That's going to wrap it up for today. Please like and subscribe and stay tuned as we're going to be coming out with some new products. If you have comments, leave them below. Please contact us if you have questions as well. You can DM us on Instagram, you can email us, or you can just call the 1-800 number. Thank you.